So again, welcome to the breakout session on learning and education. So let me briefly introduce ourselves. My name is Christian Henneberger from the University of Bonn, and my co-chair is Ulrich Ettinger. We are both working in work package number 4, and we are both from the University of Bonn. I have prepared a few slides at the beginning of the breakout session, and the first one is essentially summarizing what Bob Harris already talked about in the past 15 minutes, and how it is, well, put it into perspective of work package number 4. And I guess the discussion that we're going to have would ideally be about what NeurotechEU should be accomplishing regarding learning and teaching in the next 5, 10, 20 years, and also what NeurotechEU could look like in 2040, or in other words, what it should look like maybe. So for those of you that have not been able to participate this morning, I would briefly like to go over what we actually have planned for work package 4, and then we can discuss what we should also be considering, or where we should actually already now know that we have to amend our plan somehow. For those who have seen very similar slides this morning already, I'd like to apologize and hope you bear with us for a couple of minutes. So the central bit that we currently are setting up for NeurotechEU in terms of teaching is the Campus Plus platform. So this is going to be a central digital platform for all people, whether they're teachers or students, whether they're learning or providing the content. And it's supposed to enable the communication between all those involved. And we're going to have use this platform for organizing face-to-face communication and also the training itself. So whether we set up physical travel or whether we actually set up online teaching, it's all going to happen there. And the first bit, the simplest bit, is probably going to be to capture what is already available at universities in terms of teaching. So we can then make that available to the students, and they can pick and choose what fits their degree and what they think fits their career. And it's not so much important whether that's online or in person at that moment, because we expect that traveling will be, especially in initial parts of Neurotech, quite an activity. So then we'll also have the Neurotech Graduate School, and Tansu this morning already talked about it, introduced it quite a bit. With regards to work package 4, this is important because the Graduate School will also build on the Campus Plus platform. And in contrast to the undergraduate teaching that will be captured in Campus Plus, this is now going to be the host or the interface to the graduate teaching. So method courses, soft skill courses for writing, for presentation, these kind of things. And it will also create an interface to the available supervisors in neuroscience and neurotechnologies across the partner universities. So you can find a supervisor, and then once you are at one of the universities, then you can also choose multiple supervisors from across various disciplines, and maybe from neurotechnology, maybe more basic neuroscience, maybe translational neuroscience, to get more perspectives on the work that you might be doing as a graduate student. And this is also the platform on which we expect to strengthen the scientific cooperation, because once people are working in actual research projects together with each other, then there will be exchange and hopefully also collaboration. So the Campus Plus is also going to be used for the Lifelong Learning Center, and so we're expecting to host various content there. This is going to be a platform in which we make available what is already existing or what is happening locally at the various sites, but also provide new content. So things that we're currently thinking about are, for instance, historical lectures on science. You've seen the one by this morning, and we are also considering having larger lectures, for instance, for the general public on new emerging techniques, new interesting findings in neurotechnology, new therapies, the kind of content that would be interesting to the general public, and for instance also for pupils on the other end of the spectrum. And this will all be supplemented by a pedagogy field lab, because I think we all made the experience over the past months that although it's easy to basically put a lecture online, this is not taking full advantage of the medium. So we'll have to think about formats that are suitable for online teaching, like what can be stored for offline, what can be consumed or basically watched in a non-live fashion, what kind of content needs to be taught live, how do you do exams, how do you get feedback from the students, how do you promote discussion, etc. And then we also have to, and this point came up several times today already, we have to set quality standards and have to make sure that these are not only set, but we will also need to guarantee them to some degree. And we'll also have to take care of procedures that recognizes, that ensures the recognition of student achievements and their recognition by other partners. This is essentially what we've planned so far, or in a nutshell, what we planned so far for the work package 4, what the Campus Plus is going to be about, and what the teaching is going to look like. And then we actually, and this is basically what we would like to discuss then. We have set these goals in Neurotech so far for the teaching, but the question is whether we should, to what extent this needs to be amended in order to be ready for what's going to come in the next 5, 10, 20 years till 2040. And so this is essentially hopefully a discussion that will evolve around what is going to be, what could be ideas or what could be directions in which we will develop the learning and education that NeurotechEU can provide. Regarding procedures, we have come up with a couple of questions, and you should be seeing some of those on your screen right at the moment. These are just suggestions. The discussion is open to whatever you think is interesting in this context. If you'd like to say something, please put either say so in the chat, and if you want to reply to one of the questions or make a statement or share your opinion, then we would invite you on stage. Be, however, reminded that these sessions are recorded, so if you don't want to be seen on the video, then you shouldn't be going on stage. Otherwise, you can simply ask a question, and then we either bring that question up or you can ask it yourself and you can discuss it yourself. So, having said that, yeah, we're looking forward to having a nice discussion with you regarding the future of learning and teaching. Yes, there is a question. So Harvard Beckering is asking whether we are also concentrating on more fundamental aspects of learning, that is the understanding of motivational drives of learning from a system neuroscience perspective, and whether that's included. This is not on the list of the questions we've been coming up so far. But if you'd like to comment on that, or whether you want to share your opinion regarding that, you're most welcome to come on stage. Could you please indicate in the chat if you'd like to?
I guess that's the equivalent of someone walking up to the microphone in a large meeting room. So there you go.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hello.
Well, great that you are doing this, and really happy to think with you. My point is that we as neuroscientists have a lot to give to the educational people. So also by thinking about things like attention, memory, motivation, and we in Nijmegen now have many people studying this using cognitive neuroscience methods. And I think it would be nice to have this as an additional element. So not only thinking about how can we bridge online and offline, or how can we classify the assignments, but also really like thinking more about underlying learning mechanisms.
Absolutely. Christian, I'm no more an expert in this than you are, or you probably are more than I am, but if I may just very spontaneously comment on that, I would totally agree. You know, so we're meeting here not primarily as learning or attention or motivation researchers, but as well as those you know, working in this particular work package in Neurotech. So trying to move on education in neuroscience across these different universities. But of course, we should, and you'd be absolutely right, to draw on the findings, on the expertise that we generate ourselves in our research. So I couldn't agree more. I would probably sort of return the question to you. How do you think we should best do this? Do you have a particular idea? I mean, are you suggesting literally combining teaching and research, or
Yeah.
Are there particular findings that you would like to immediately flow into our own training?
Well, I think there's also talk about living labs at all the universities, and I think this would be like a really nice topic to study in these living labs. So together with the students, we can study how do we learn, and then feed this back into the consortium. So we can make this like an active topic of research within learning and education. Say, okay, we have so much knowledge about the brain, and we want to learn more about how we learn. And so, for instance, my lab is very open to get guests from all over Europe, and then together we can investigate this matter, and then we can bring it back to the Neurotech consortium. That would be one day. So to use the living labs. Another way would be we could also see if we can go for an Horizon grant together and say, hey, we have this aim of improving learning and education. One aspect of it could be understanding the fundamental mechanisms more. And then we'll immediately have a great consortium with the Neurotech.
Yeah, maybe I can briefly comment on that. This is a very, very important point you're making. Actually, this wasn't on our agenda. There is, in fact, a co-application headed by Boğaziçi University, who is one of the partners in Neurotech, and I'm wondering if one of them is around and whether your ideas are actually already sort of considered in that proposal, because that is sort of is supposed to complement the pedagogy lab, right? Where we try to figure out how to actually optimally present the content. But you're absolutely right. This is not just figuring out what to do online, what to do practically and in person, but also how can we actually take advantage of what we know about learning and memory and motivation in order to get the content across in an optimal manner.
So everybody, I'm very open to join initiatives in this direction. And also happy to take my share in it. So I will also try to get you to join me.
Okay. Another suggestion might be to, in our university, to link up with education research people. So researchers who may not necessarily have neuroscience on their minds, as it were, but who have expertise in empirically evaluating educational outcomes, for example. So linking that with neuroscience would be a great way to go. Yeah.
So perhaps there are other topics that people like to bring in. So thank you very much for this time.
Thank you for your contribution to the discussion. Thanks a lot. So there are a few other questions coming up. So one of them is asked by Christian Steinhäuser, who's asking, how will joint supervision of students by partner universities technically be managed? Well, this is something that we are developing in the Neurotech graduate school. We haven't figured this out yet. It is also a question at the moment that came up a couple of times already today on whether European universities are going to be legal entities and whether they will have their own degrees and award their own degrees. I mean, there seems to be the consensus overall, when looking back at what was said this morning, that this should be the case. And they should award degrees. And there was a poll this very morning, and if I remember correctly, somehow I messed something up. Sorry for that. So if I remember correctly, the poll this morning was asking students whether they would prefer European universities to have their own degrees and whether they would award their own degrees and whether that would be supported. And the vast majority, roughly 95%, said they would be very much in favor of that. So there seems to be a general agreement that this should be the case. Now, how to implement it seems to be, if I understood this morning's lecture by the representative of the European Commission, to be a kind of challenge, because traditionally, and I can only talk about Germany, this is sort of the holy grail of individual universities. And actually, regarding that question, I was wondering if this is the same across all partner universities and whether this is going to be a struggle that could be faced with sort of sharing authorities with classical universities in awarding degrees. I know, Uli, what do you think?
About joint speaking?
Yeah.
Well, that's an ambitious goal. I think that's the original aim of the program, though. So it will be in terms of administrative processes. Yeah, it's a challenge, but I think we should work towards it.
There was a comment by, I'm sorry, I'm very bad at pronouncing names correctly. Izin Öztürk Izik? Do you want to share your thoughts on stage? Could you please, if so, could you please comment in the chat? I'm not seeing anything, so let's, oh yeah. There seems to be quite substantial delays. Sorry for that. Then now I have to... You should get an invitation to the stage now.
Hi.
Hello.
So I was talking about maybe not technical, but how to start about joint supervision of our students. So I feel like unless there is a joint project on the table, it will be hard, to engage our students on joint supervised projects. So I was mentioning about possibly discussing amongst, supervisors about possible projects that we could work together. And then, include the students to the discussion, either afterwards or at the beginning. The student might also come up with some possible labs that they might be interested in collaborating with. Then we could jointly supervise. I have had some experience in the past. One of my students was interested in working with a professor at not Utrecht, Leiden Medical Center. And we both actually, followed her work, and we were able to conduct some online meetings, just like the ones that we have been doing, within the past year. And it worked out quite well, actually. She also visited his lab for 6 months, then came back, worked in my lab for 6 another months. So we could, I think, do it in terms of the research side, but when it comes to technicalities of those, that I'm not very sure about. That's all.
Thanks a lot. I think you're making an excellent point, and this is there is going to be funding hopefully available. Tanzo mentioned it this morning that there is a top-up application that has been submitted that is hopefully going to fund also stipends, because stipends would be the ideal way to set something up like that, right? If you have this is going back and forth, sorry.
That will also be very important.
Yeah, because the question is because there's not going to be thousands of stipends available. I mean, I think given the funding that is likely to be there, it doesn't sound as if we're going to have thousands of students, new PhD students per year, funded for that. So, but you're right. It would be important to actually in the graduate school to set it up in a way that it, by default, even if it's not funded, it encourages some sort of joint projects across universities, and not set that up post hoc when you're trying to find a suitable supervisor for student X, because then it's essentially a bit too late for getting the enthusiasm of the student to do that. Actually, right? I think that was your point.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for listening. I guess I'm going to close my video now. Leave the floor to you guys.
Okay, thank you very much.
So you've already mentioned funding. I think that's a really critical issue, I suppose, not just for graduates, PhD, doctoral students, but also for students, bachelor, master students. Christian, are you aware of any further funding that may come our way in terms of in order to fund student stipends, even just support for travel expenses for when the exchange takes place?
So the current idea is that most of the money for the actual traveling is coming through Erasmus Plus and or related programs, and that it is to some extent also provided by NeurotechEU. But despite the plans are huge for the European universities. But if you think about all the expenses, for instance, for master stipends that you would actually have, it seems rather unlikely that the current funding of NeurotechEU is going to cover that on a big scale. We were talking about bench fees that could be provided to a university, so that at least there is, for a hosting university, so there is at least some sort of compensation for costs for consumables. But stipends beyond that, on a bigger scale, maybe there's someone else in the audience who's involved in these discussions, but from my point of view, it does not look very likely at the moment. At least not for the first 3 years, which is the setup period, in which we probably are more going to work on establishing the concepts on how to run a European university, rather than having it fully running at the very end, or basically being at the transition to it, having it fully running and after 3 years, say. Yeah. Do we have further questions? So there's a question from Wim Schienen. Okay, there's one more comment regarding the first question, which is about just from An. Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm going to mess up all the names, I'm afraid. An Nguyen, do you want to comment on that on the stage? If so, please say yes in the chat. Okay, I'll invite you to the stage.
Hi.
Hello. Hey. How are you?
I'm good. Very excited to be here. I'm in medical school myself, and I a course, a concentrated course about artificial intelligence and how it's implemented in healthcare. And I think that it's going to play a crucial part for later on in medicine, because especially for imaging and neuroimaging, for example, it will profit from it because it improves interpretation of the image and improves also the quality of the image, because you can see everything more fine, and it's not that you know what I mean. It's not that pixeled kind of. And also it can, if the artificial intelligence can learn, the machine learning can learn, then it can also improve the workload for the doctor as well, because then you may have some suggestions or anything else, and it can be also safer, because it can correct your diagnosis with the AI, which was learning from several thousands of images. And I thought it would be nice to have like a basic course of artificial intelligence, because it's becoming more and more important, I think. Yeah.
Yes, thanks a lot for the comment. That's an excellent point that we didn't have on our agenda either. So that's exactly what this discussion is good for. We're doing basic neuroscience, so I'm probably not doing that much imaging that you're referring to, but maybe Uli can comment on that.
Yeah, right.
Very happy to comment on that. That's a really good suggestion. Thank you for that comment. So it should definitely be part of a sort of the foundations, like a sort of basic methodological curriculum. So what is AI? It's basically statistics, and and so maybe you can separate it into the absolutely the fundamentals, and then the applications to imaging data, for example. But AI will be used in other modalities, in other domains of neuroscience as well. So I think So are you suggesting this should be part of the doctoral level training or even before?
I think then it would depend also on what kind of research you are doing, because if it's going to be in a more neurotechnical point of view, I think there it would be good to have this background knowledge. And yes, because I was thinking that as far as I understood, that the education program is going to be several courses, and you can choose your course which you are interested in. So just providing the possibility of educating yourself about artificial intelligence and gaining some basic knowledge about it would be just a benefit for everyone, or everyone who's interested in it.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Like Christian said, we didn't have it on our agenda, but we'd be very happy to add it as an important component. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is also in basic neuroscience. Artificial intelligence is becoming more important for analysis. So, for instance, for tracking of behavior, capturing movements, and the analysis, which would otherwise be impossible if you think about the giant heaps of video data that you otherwise acquire. That you certainly need AI to dig through those big piles of data. You can otherwise not deal with it, actually. That's a very good point. Thank you very much for this excellent addition. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. All right. Let's see. Gulcan, you wanted to comment on something, right? Shall I invite you on stage?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that Esin Öztürk has commented on a project that was submitted by Boğaziçi University. So I just wanted to comment on that project. We've submitted an Erasmus Plus proposal. The proposal focuses on incorporating a collaborative workspace into online course design. We thought the idea was that the Campus Plus could be improved, and features of collaboration among the students can be built into the system, because we think that most learning management systems they kind of suffer from lack of collaborative features. And so, I mean, at the Faculty of Education at Boğaziçi University, we would like to focus on this aspect. And especially, I mean, now that most courses are being online, we really feel the need to enhance collaboration among students and among colleagues. So whatever system that we are using, and in this case the Campus Plus, it should be designed very carefully with this in mind. So it's not just a space where courses or materials are provided, but it should be designed as a workspace where people can collaborate together. And so that's what we are planning to pursue. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for giving us this bit of additional information. That's very helpful. I was, I guess we all have this experience over the past few months that there is quite a learning curve for everyone involved, right? So when it comes to digital or online teaching, I think it's both on the side of the teachers, but also on the side of the students, because all of a sudden the types of communications that are available and are not needs consideration, also a bit more discipline actually in communication. So I was wondering, do you think it's actually going to be necessary to have courses for teachers? I mean, for the those that have been actually experienced in teaching for a long time, traditional face-to-face. Would it make sense to also have guidance for those? Or do you think they will simply adapt? Or is that already part of what you're planning?
No, that's already a part of what we're planning. In fact, we thought that this collaboration, I mean, as part of, sorry, I can hear my voice, so it's so hard to talk. Yeah, now it's better. So, in fact, the idea is to bring instructors or colleagues from different institutions to design a course together. And this way, in fact, training will start with the instructors. So, I mean, having the instructors work in this collaborative workspace, collaborate in this space, and that's the initial stage. So, in fact, we are planning to, as I said, bring colleagues or instructors from different institutions, and they, through collaboration or collaborative workspace, they develop a course together and then implement this course with the students, again, who are engaged in collaboration as part of the course. So it really includes both instructors and students.
So it's interesting. So you're actually intending to start with the teachers, and then first they get educated.
Especially the teachers. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So now this is my third attempt to come to the third question by Wim Schenen. So do you want to come on stage?
Hello.
Hello.
So yeah, I saw on your slide you also were asking which levels education should take, and I saw one option, the lifelong learning. I'm very interested in that myself because of what we are currently doing within our faculty. Yeah, lifelong learning is very personal, of course, and as long as you stay within your field, like now the neurotech, then I think it goes quite obvious. But along your career, it can also be that you develop different ideas, different strengths, and you want to branch out of neurotech into a new field. How do you see those connections? Or maybe somebody wants to come into the neurotech field but misses some things. How do you see those connections within the education program of the Neurotech University?
At the moment, the plans are such that at the moment what we're going to have is sort of information provided to the outside. What we currently, I think, have no real concept on is how do we integrate people later on past graduation back into neurotech. And I think this is an important point you're making. Off the top of my head, I honestly hadn't thought about it. I was wondering what would be the ideas? How could you encourage? Or I mean, you can, if you have that platform and you communicate the content, you certainly would maybe generate the awareness. But then you would also need to have additional classes, courses, which would prepare sort of those that enter horizontally to educate themselves, so they can become more and more familiar with the content with neurotechnology, essentially. I mean, how do you have ideas how this might?
Well, I'm thinking about one thing, that is what we are working on within our faculty, and that is that we can have career officers working to have discussions, set up discussion platforms, and we are currently doing that for our master students and our PhD students, so that they can follow certain online modules to further sharpen their own view of their own future, so they can shape their future self. And this is something that actually is ongoing throughout one's entire career. And if you can implement that in a good way, then I think for the people already embarked in the Neurotech program, you have that platform, and you can also expand it then, that people looking into Neurotech, they can also embark on some of those modules just to see which kind of courses they would need.
So essentially, I mean, one way of doing this would be to have kind of a sort of a hierarchy of things that you might want to consider first in order to move closer and closer to neurotechnology, if I understand you correctly.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's an excellent idea. I mean, the question is anyway how to fill the lifelong learning center with life, because if you want to reach out to the general public, you immediately are facing I guess the issue of language. While we are all absolutely fine talking to each other in English because we're used to that, that might not be the case everywhere. And I was wondering, so if you have experience with that, how do you? I mean, in the Netherlands, probably everybody speaks English. I suppose that's not an issue. Or do you have concepts or a way of approaching those issues?
Well, actually, yeah, the English level is quite adequate here. So, indeed, all communication is in English. Most of the education programs are in English. So the students, both master students and PhD students, that come across our career service, they typically communicate in English. So that is indeed not a problem. But if you go worldwide, or first European-wide and maybe later worldwide, then indeed that is something to take into consideration. But yeah, looking at exchange, what's happening there, that there you can also set up certain guides about English proficiency that is required to participate in the program, of course.
Okay. Yeah, this is obviously if that's the stage or the state of education in the Netherlands, that is obviously an advantage if you can simply rely on the fact that English is going to be understood. I was wondering if that's the feeling across all partners. I don't know. What do you think is going to be the case in Germany?
Well, I would have just commented on that. So first of all, thanks, Wim, for the comment regarding the lifelong learning aspect of it, which I think is really important. And I think there may need to be sort of almost parallel courses, or in part parallel courses, that are then held in specific, in the partner universities' languages. Like in Germany, I think you'll be able to reach quite a few people in English, but many you won't. So I think it would be important to have at least some of the courses, or whatever materials we offer available in German as well. So that's regarding the lifelong learning aspect. I actually wanted at some point also to generally discuss the issue of language, as it was originally conceived in the idea of European universities. Students should be trained in, well, ideally in more than one or even two languages, perhaps even in 3 languages. And English, it looks and sounds like it will be fine for most, if not all our students, and then there'll be naturally one native language. But how do people feel generally about us teaching our students, or teaching in a 3rd language for our students, and how do the students feel moving between countries and then taking courses not just in English but also in another language? So I don't want to sort of end the discussion on lifelong learning now, but I did want to really ask sort of everyone, especially the students perhaps who are here, how would you feel if you came to Bonn and there happened to be a course that you're interested, or you're online taking a course and it happens to be in German? Or Wim, did you say most or all of your courses are taught in English in the Netherlands?
So if I look for my faculty, apart from 2 or 3 studies in the bachelor, everything is English, and all the master studies are already in English, all the courses. Yeah.
Okay.
University-wide, this is of course different, and university policy is that indeed when we work with exchange students or exchange employees, that we use our native language or English, and basically we have enough of a latent understanding to follow a discussion, even if it's not the native language it's spoken in.
All right. Okay, that's very impressive. Christian, I'm not sure about neuroscience, and well, I'm asking Christian now because we're in different departments and different faculties. So in psychology and in the Faculty of Arts, much teaching is still in German. I think in where you are and in neuroscience, it may also be different.
I mean, for us, I mean, we have a master in neuroscience, for instance, which is completely taught in English, and also we in the graduate schools, English is the standard language. It does change a bit depending on what you study, because it's just a prerequisite, for instance, for medicine, that people in Germany are at least allowed to do that in German. So there, for those ones, and law, for instance, which might not be immediately relevant, but might be relevant in some aspects, and then you immediately have that language barrier. So there are two. We can have up to 6 people on stage. There are two comments in the chat regarding language. If you don't mind, I would invite both of you also on stage to discuss language with us. Is that okay? Ingeborg and Gudrun again.
So maybe I can comment on what Christian says. Of course, also for our university, for medicine studies, that is typically still in Dutch, because the future doctors need to be able to converse with the patients. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. While others are coming onto the stage, Christian, I think there's an echo from you. Whenever you switch your mic off, it's better. Perfect, thank you. So while others are coming onto the stage, I'm just reading some of the comments. So that's very impressive. All courses are offered in English at Bogazici University, except for some language classes. That's very impressive. Doctoral courses, master level courses at Karolinska in English as well. So maybe I'm, posing a question or a problem that isn't really one. But still, I guess my original question was also, would students like to be taught in another language? Is this part of a European university? Is part of the exchange that you're taking part in, eventually, not just digitally but also in person? Yeah. How do students feel about that? I'll just sort of put that as an open question to everyone.
Yes.
But Ingeborg, hi, welcome to the stage.
Hello. Do you hear me? Yes. It is. We are so used to that. We have more than 2,000 doctoral students at Karolinska Institute, and we are very much. It's very international. So English is a prerequisite, also for entering doctoral education to have, and the teachers are used to that, and a master in biomedicine, where there's also neuroscience. Yes, we are used to that. And also our webpage is both in English and in Swedish. So I think there is no problem.
Okay, so essentially means that just out of interest, because I'm a medic by training, so how does that work when you have to communicate with patients that do not speak English?
That is, of course, when you have to communicate with patients, you need to know Swedish. But we have also many exchange students from all over the world, from Vietnam. I think about Ang Nguyen, who just talked. Even if she has a German accent, is interesting. They come and the teacher, they can explain for the communication with the patients. So we have a lot of exchange students that can come and be with patients. But yes, it's possible.
But that's clearly an advantage.
And they appreciate it very much.
That's very good. So we're still waiting for Gulshan to connect.
Do you hear me? It's okay.
We hear you. There's somebody else in line, so to speak. Okay.
Well, a couple of comments in the meantime. Two students from Anne Nguyen saying she would feel comfortable learning in English. Karina Beug from Bonn, PhD student, native German, all in English. That's the master struggle that you're referring to, Christian. She agrees that it would be nice to learn at least a third language.
So do we have, do we have the need to offer something dedicated in NeurotechEU? Or would we be able to take advantage of the facilities that are already there at the partner universities to introduce people to the language, to the language that is spoken, if there's the requirement of acquiring additional language skills? I guess for the students that are going to be now, well, they're going to be 15. If they're going to be students in Neurotech in 5 years, I'm sure they're going to know English, right?
Yes, I think for the master and doctoral level, it's no problem.
Except if there are legal requirements for the teaching to be given in a certain language. So the Netherlands and Sweden are, well, they're known to be very international. I don't know whether Germany is known to be very international. I wouldn't be able to tell. But I mean, how about, so there's a comment from Boazici saying that offers 11 different languages as elective courses. Quite a number of those, so students can take all these courses. There are also courses for teaching Turkish as a foreign language. So is there, there's a lot of comments. So then there's another one by Marique Delamar, who's saying that I'm sure the partner universities have sufficient language offers for both students and teachers. And then there is again the dependency, Haluk Bingol, who's saying that there is a dependency on the audience for grad students is probably English, for general public local language, and for undergrad students there's a question mark. So essentially we seem to all agree that the further advanced you are in your studies, the more likely the more likely it is that English is fully sufficient. But when you move maybe to the undergrad level, or to specialized courses, or maybe to the lifelong learning center, you might need to consider that we need additional languages on offer.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think the teachers are very good, and the young students are very good in English. Better and better, but it's more the teachers in other countries.
Okay, so it's an age question essentially. What you're saying, that the younger, the easier it will be if it's in English. Maybe offering the courses with English subtitles. Yeah, I was wondering, there are some platforms that actually offer automatic automatic translation. I mean, this could. I've seen it a couple of times. I don't know which platform that was. But it seems to be possible to close captioning things automatically, and that could obviously be useful for this kind of for presenting content and in a sort of language, not in different manner, but sort of in an easily accessible manner. There was actually this comment earlier on in one of the previous sessions that it would be great to have subtitles anyway for those that have hearing impairments.
Yes.
That's another important point that maybe we should be considering. Yeah, that was sorry. I should give credit who basically made the comment in the chat. That was again Anne. Yeah, and then Marike basically just commented what I just said. So this seems to be also a general consensus that we have. This is very valuable feedback, because this is a very practical consideration. that will be relevant immediately when we start producing content, which we hope to do early, actually already early next week for online teaching. That's great to know. All right.
So you can throw me out.
Okay. Thanks for your contribution.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you again.
All right. So I don't see immediately another question.
We had noted that we could have had a few more questions, Christian, right? Maybe I can still hear myself. There you go. Thank you. Maybe I'll just pose a question to everyone. One that was on one of your slides, Christian, and one that again sort of goes to the roots of the European universities idea. What do we want students to teach? What do students want to learn? Is it just neuroscience? I mean, that's a big enough topic. Neurotechnology, that's quite enough in its own right. But should the idea of a European university also be to teach topics related to Europe? Is it just a geographical coincidence that we're in the Netherlands and Sweden and so on and so forth? Or is there something about Europe that should be taught within the Neurotech University? Debate. Very happy to hear your thoughts, your views on that. Okay, local cultural aspects. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so Wim should, I mean, something like intercultural training should that be part of any exchange, part of the curriculum? There's another comment from Mareike. Interesting question. I guess in the long term, yes. Thinking of the way we look at the world, also ethics getting in place. Ethics, of course. There was already a comment from sorry again, ongoing about artificial intelligence. So we can link that back with your ethics comment about ethics, Mareike. Yeah.
I was just wondering, Mareike and Wim, do you want to come on stage to discuss this aspect a little bit in more detail? You know what? I'm going to send you an invitation, and if you don't want to, you just don't accept it. Okay, it might be.
Okay, so Ingeborg responded ethical aspects in courses when applicable. Of course, I would totally agree. Now, there seems to be sort of a different issue, well, under the same umbrella of, let's say, social science, philosophy, arts, but ethics on the one hand and the sort of the European side of things on the other hand. So I'm happy to discuss both, and I'd be very open to both, of course. Okay, hi both of you. Feel free, either of you, to comment. I think maybe Mareike, were you first to respond?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't have much more to add to what I wrote in the chat. But I think that, well, as I said, in the end, we are all based in Europe, and I think we have in ourselves a piece of Europe, and I think it would be good to share that with each other. And of course, it might be different between Germany and Italy and the Netherlands, but there is also a very common part which we tend to forget. And I think that we should share that with each other, and also I don't know the word, but also spread it wider on. And of course, like you mentioned, intercultural training aspects will, definitely be part of Neurotech European University. I think there's no discussion about that.
But if I may just add a question to that, do you think this is automatically happening, or do you think you have to somehow promote this? And what would be a suitable or feasible way of doing that? What do you think?
I think part might happen automatically, but we can't trust on that. So I think we should pay attention to it. And I think a lot of the partner universities are doing that already by preparing intercultural courses for their international students. So I think that we can make use of that what is already there, also for the students that will participate in Neurotech. Because I think that automatically, because you talk to somebody from another country or another culture, you will understand each other. That's not the case. So I think it might help that people get aware of the differences and well, pay a little bit more attention to that when they communicate with people from other cultures.
I couldn't agree more. I totally agree with you. And so either way, implicitly or more explicitly, this should definitely be an important part of it. And some comment again, Karina, absolutely agreeing that intercultural trainings are important. There you are, Karina, you're on stage. I don't need to read your comment. Okay, do you want to answer yourself? Do you want to answer?
Yes, hi. Exactly. So I would just quickly like to join and say that I received an intracultural training when I went to Scotland during my bachelor program. And I think it was really important because sometimes you are not aware of all the traditions and values from other cultures. So this helped me a lot in seeing those things and interacting with other people. Yeah, that was all I wanted to say, basically.
Yeah, but I think that's very important what you say, Karina, because it's just what you say. When you know it, then you can recognize it and you can act accordingly. And if you don't know it, well, sometimes by accident, so to say, you may act correctly, but you may also do some things and give a completely different impression than the one that you want to give and get to a completely different outcome than the one that you aim for.
And this actually goes both ways. This goes for the incoming students, but also for the lecturers that get students from cultures that they have no experience with. They will react in certain ways that the students might get blocked. So this intercultural training should actually be both ways.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, this shouldn't all be just the students' jobs, to undergo this training. This affects or concerns us teachers, lecturers as much. Yeah, I totally agree.
There was exactly the same comment coming from Ingeborg, basically saying that also it's not just the students that require the training, but the ones who teach as well. So they understand the students' reaction. So that seems to be a rather large consensus again. Yeah, thanks a lot for the comments. That's excellent. Do we have further questions?
Yeah. So my question on European, European issues, that wasn't really well received. No, does that mean no interest?
Well, what do you mean by European issues?
Well, this is a European project, and there's I guess a certain philosophy or view of politics behind it. So should we raise awareness of that as well? So basically, courses in European history, politics, society, philosophy, things like that. Or is that too far remote? Is that too far away from neuroscience, and will that detract from proper neuroscience training?
I think if you start with, for example, a history in neuroscience or neurotech, and there you can expand on the relevant parts into politics or management, that is also different between the countries. Yeah, I think if you look at neuroscience, we've seen this in the keynotes today, it has a very rich history. And if you expand on that and make a course on that, emphasizing, for example, students traveling to Germany, what is the German contribution into neuroscience, these kind of things, and you can expand on that.
So let me then ask maybe a question to everyone that we had on the agenda, which actually now comes in rather organically. these are all additional things that the universities will have to offer on top of their actual education. I mean, so of the local students, right? This is going to be, if you think NeurotechEU big, then this is a substantial amount of money that this will cost. So I was wondering do you think that the universities will carry such a large initiative when is there going to be enough enthusiasm in the long run to keep doing this with the funding that is already there, or do you have the general feeling at your respective sites that there is a lot more funding going to be needed from the European Union to establish all these concepts? Because if you open up courses between partner universities, that's one thing, yeah. But if you offer to everybody then intercultural training, language training, you may dedicated courses, you think about pedagogy, etc., then it's a lot of extra effort. So, what's your feeling generally? Is what there is already enough, or should we actually make a strong case for additional funding directly coming to the European universities to cover all these aspects?
Maybe I can comment. There is, I think, in most universities there will be some framework, but if you really want to go for this overarching European network, then I think looking at the workload of lecturers and researchers, then additional funding might actually be necessary to also address the correct people.
Yeah, so I see a lot of nodding. Yeah, so I guess that's also
Yes. I hate to start immediately by asking additional funding from the European Union, so that's why I'm a bit hesitant. But I think that if you indeed want the European University Initiative, and I'm not talking only about Neurotech, but also the others, to become real European universities, a lot of funding is needed. And I think it's also our challenge to involve our colleagues from other expertise fields in Neurotech European University. And because I saw already some questions also in the chat about neuroscience research on language organization and things like that. And I think that this is something that we will gradually do, but that's why I liked very much Wim's suggestion that you could start, like to say, as simple as a history of European neuroscience, and use that to give this European, how do you call it? This unit of Europeanity to the students. And I think that's really also something that the European Union wants, of course. So we have to do that. We can't just do only neuroscience and nothing about becoming a European citizen in the end, because I think that's also a very important goal of the European Union, that we train people to become citizens of Europe. And so we have to think of ways, and I liked very much the suggestion of Wim, which looks, which might sound rather small, but I think it's a good way to start it.
Yeah, in fact, this is actually something in the planning you couldn't know because that was discussed at the last Board of Governors meeting, where well, actually we've seen the first bit of it today, this morning about Willis, but there's going to be a lecture series on historical aspects and how they relate to Europe. But I think it was planned in a way that's just related to the actual neuroscience, but maybe you can also put it in a more historical context in relation to Europe that would be give it a sort of more local feel, right? There were two more comments coming up, and they're about. One is coming from Elena, who's asking that, are you doing neuroscience research on language organization in native speakers of different languages? Elena, would you like to bring that up on stage? There was also a reply and another reply, and I think it might be better if you discuss it directly. If you're okay with it, I would be... Let me just invite you. If you don't like it, just ignore it. I think Elena and Anne were commenting on this. Okay. Elena would rather not. So I'm reading out what you. So the question was essentially whether there's. Okay, so she's having a problem with the camera. So Elena, no problem. I'm going to read it to everyone. So the question was whether we're planning specific neuroscience research on language organization in native speakers of different languages. I guess what you're coming from is whether we have to adapt the way we present our content to reach a maximum number of people. I don't think we had it on our agenda yet. It's certainly something to consider. It goes along the line what was mentioned previously by Harold, sorry, making sure that what we know about the brain and how it works is actually also informing the way we teach, right? And there was another reply to that by Anne, and she has accepted the invitation to come on stage, and it currently says she's connecting, but I can't see her.
Maybe I have to go out.
Okay, then maybe that's a problem. So thank you very much, Mareike. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So one question or comment was collaborating with organizations that are already offering certain complementary courses, such as artificial intelligence. So that's, I think, what this comment is relating to, which is a really good suggestion. Is Anne coming on to stage? Christian, we can't hear you.
Yeah, Anne, I mean, you should receive an invitation. Please do come on stage again. Oh, it doesn't work apparently. I'm going to invite you again. I can't invite you again.
So you have just one shot over there? 1 or 10?
No, I don't know.
Can't be right.
Some technical issue.
But Anne is hopefully joining us on stage. Shall we just maybe talk about that really good suggestion that we bring in external partners, for example, on artificial intelligence, or there may be other technological issues that can be taught better or more hands-on, more at the forefront of technological developments by industry partners. What is the scope for that within Neurotech European University? What is the funding that we have for that? Or generally, is that something that is on our radar, as it were? Christian, what do you reckon?
So, I mean, you mean funding coming from outside sources beyond the European Union?
Well,
I mean,
buying and training, as it were, from outside, from companies that develop from software to hardware.
Yeah, maybe very quickly, because we have to be done in 5 minutes. So companies in general seem to be very keen on collaborating with these European universities. So there's quite a bit of enthusiasm. I mean, Tansu is the one who knows all the details, but he could organize, for instance, a collaboration with BMW and MathWorks, who are going to provide online courses also for the Lifelong Learning Center. They have basically agreed to do that for free. Because they see the potential probably in advertising their own companies and also recruiting people. So I think this might, I mean, if we can use similar strategies for language education or services, then that would certainly be an option. You would have to figure out what those companies, which companies would be doing this, yeah, and what could be on offer. But in principle, I think that's an excellent idea. Yeah. All right, we almost exhausted the time slot we were given. I do not see, let me check the chat, I do not see urgent questions. So then let's close the session maybe for now, and then we will meet again in the roundtable discussion. I would really like to thank all of you for this excellent discussion. I'm very happy because it wasn't quite clear whether it would work that well, and sorry again for the technical difficulties. Apologies for my inability to handle the system really well. That was very productive, and I hope we see each other again at Neurotech. So bye-bye for now.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for sharing, and thanks everyone for joining the discussion. Bye.